You're tuning in to Radio Movies, a special event podcast and collaboration between the Explosion Network, the Pop Culturist, and DashGamer.com. Each week, we'll be discussing the films from the Kevin Smith View Askew universe, our memories with them, and what we love from preparing ourselves for the up-and-coming Jay Silent Reboot, which we've now watched. We've watched the thing. This is the finale. Everyone get prepared. Strap in. My name's Dylan Blight, and Jody from the Pop Culturist, Ryan Benson.
How are you, sir?
I am amazing. I feel like it's been 20 years since we were like, this movie will be out soon.
Well, yeah, that was the problem. We all planned for this one specific date, and then the worldwide release didn't happen, and then nothing, and then it randomly appeared for one day in Australia, and then nothing.
Australia got fucked hard on this one. And also here, Buddy Watson.
We are 1 week away from being 6 months since the last episode of this podcast. It was like a TV show.
Really?
Yes, we are. It's like a TV show that filmed every single episode, and then the season finale has been released 6 months later. Can you imagine if that happened in Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, or any other massively popular TV show right now? Fans would be livid. They would be tearing the internet apart, but that is the kind of situation we're in right now. And, the world is kind of falling apart. Maybe, just maybe, we caused this. Kevin Smith caused
Look, I'm just going to put it out there. I do appreciate you putting us in the same echelon of like Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones, and thank you.
Well, I really like Breaking Bad, and I really hate Game of Thrones, so it kind of middles us out.
Ooh, it's mixed feelings. Yeah.
I do feel like this podcast was doing quite well, and if there was any sort of people hanging on for the finale, they were like, yeah, I'll delete that. They're not doing the final episode, it seems.
We've been building up for this very moment. It never, ever happened. Maybe we should have released like a 2-minute update, like, hey guys, this is Radio Movies here, and just letting you know that the distribution for the movie sucks, and we're probably never going to see it.
Hey, that one guy that found our image in that Facebook group, he'll be pretty stoked about it.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing. Do you want to tell that story real quick? Because fuck it, it's quite funny. So
I'm part of a Kevin Smith group on Facebook. It's called like the World of Kevin Smith. I've been in it for years and years and years, and I've never really get involved in it. And then one day I just see Radio Movies rock up, the logo that a good friend Simon created. I'm like, I know that logo, and the picture was essentially, oh man, look at this awesome logo I found. I'm like, you want to know where that's from, man? Just, like give us some credit or some shit. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's like, hi, I'm Ryan Benson. You may remember me from such podcasts as so-and-so, so-and-so. And this logo is from so-and-so.
Like, you're like, oh yeah, I'm Ryan Benson. You remember me from the podcast that you're stealing the image of. Thank you very much.
Really, it's proof that for all future podcasts that any of us ever do, it's like, it doesn't matter what the podcast artwork if it represents the podcast really or not. Just make cool podcast artwork that people will try and set as wallpapers, and then you can like link them back to the show eventually somehow, maybe, like it's a whole scheme thing. So yeah, the movie didn't come to Australia for what seemed like forever. Obviously, when we started the podcast last year, it was like, okay, global release date, maybe October. Maybe Australia gets it a little bit after America. If not, whatever. We'll get it November, December. It'll be fine. And it randomly came here, what?
The 11th of March.
Oh, March.
March, yeah.
Yeah, and it was in like 3 cinemas, I feel, over the entire country.
So it was one screening across Village and Reading and like a Hoyts, I guess. So yeah, pretty much one Wednesday, like, hey, everywhere, it's today and today only. Get it excited-ish.
Yeah, and I'm going to admit that I was holding out to watch it in the cinema. Now, it never came to any cinema close to me. I've seen the movie. You can you can sue me if you want, Kevin Smith, but I feel like at this stage you can't. Like, Jesus Christ, my man. Anyway, figure that one out for yourself. But let's get to it. Jay Silent Bob Reboot.
The cinematic event you've been waiting for is now upon us.
I'm Jay, and this is my head of life mate, Silent Bob.
Jay and Silent Bob are back?
Let's go with Ryan first, because I think you've seen it more than once, right? Have you?
Yeah, I've seen it twice, yeah.
You've seen it twice. So you should have the most thought out opinions on the movie. So did you like it? Did it live up to your hopes? How do you feel?
First viewing was interesting. It was one of those things that like I took it all in and I did have to watch it again because on first viewing it didn't really land as an overall piece. It was very interesting. I think part of doing this show with you guys, it brought up some points about Kevin Smith's films I'd never realized before. And I found that they really presented themselves here in the way we talked about how every time he tries to do a nice poignant drama moment, he backends it with some comedy to really take the sting out of it. And that happens a lot here because he's trying to tell this really kind of thoughtful, heartfelt story about becoming a father, but then can't seem to separate it from needing to tell dick and fart jokes. And even there are some incredible cameos in here. I'm sure we'll go bit by bit in terms of the big parts that we like the most. But it is certainly a love letter to the View Askew universe. But I do kind of think that Strike Back may have been a better love letter.
Yeah. So overall, would you say you enjoyed it though? Like you didn't watch, because I know online I've seen people either be like, yeah, it's great, I don't know what everyone expected better from it, and then other people be like, this is the worst, I got so excited for nothing, Kevin Smith's a hack. Like, do you just fall in the middle, do you reckon?
I'd fall in the middle. Like, I certainly don't think it's a masterpiece. It's certainly not one of the best View Askew movies. However, it did take me 2 viewings to appreciate it.
Yep. Cool. Buddy, how are you feeling on those points?
Yeah, I think it's a similar train of thought. My Letterboxd review is like a 2.5, so it's right down the middle. Watching it, that's out of 5.
Oh, it's out of 5. Good. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. So, yeah, you don't go middling and then and absolutely trash it. So there was some things I liked, but overall, it was definitely, I think I've used this, it's so long since we've recorded, but I've used this in a number of podcasts to describe similar movies, but it felt like a YouTube compilation video, kind of just giving us the references of all we've seen before, which is fine, and I enjoyed a few of them, but overall, I watched it and that was fine, and I don't think I'll ever revisit or have the desire to revisit it. And for people who have kind of been yearning for that Mallrats 2, or Mallrats is now going to be a 10-episode TV series, or when we see Jay and Silent Bob back on screen, I hope that has fulfilled that kind of need. And I really felt like this was the swan song for this universe. Really, I can't see where they would go from here. But yeah, so I think overall, I really feel similar to, I guess, what you're kind of saying, Ryan. But
you do, yeah.
I think because I went in knowing that it wasn't going to be an amazing movie, like no offense to Kevin Smith, of course, but I went in with my expectations at a certain point, so that meant I left enjoying it. I thought it was, actually, I would say I thought it was better than what I expected it to be completely honest. Like, I thought it went exactly the direction I thought it was going to go based off all the trailers and stuff, which is it's just the big nostalgia trip or whatever, but it didn't cross the line into being too much that and not having anything to actually say. Like, I think that the reason I enjoyed the movie so much was I actually really enjoyed the dramatic storyline about Jay becoming a father, and I really enjoyed all of that. And with that being the core, it meant that when the jokes for me personally fell to the side, I'm like, that wasn't that funny, or that was kind of annoying, or whatever. Like, I was on board for the core storyline of Jay actually growing up and realizing he has to become this father by the end of it. And that's makes it quite interesting to watch. Also, that's one of the other things I found so much weirder about this movie is it's so much more grown up in a lot of weird ways, and it makes Jay's character quite weird. Like, it's still Jay, however, it is really toned down, especially because if we'd really watched this, like if we watched this the week after we did Clerks II, for example, with all the rest of those movies really close in mind, you would have been like, wow, he's not saying, calling people F words, and we talked about all that sort of stuff to do with the character, the slurs and whatever stuff. Like, he's toned down, and I feel like that has to do a lot with not only Kevin Smith growing up somewhat, because we've kind of talked about that before. But I feel like in a lot of ways it was Jason Mewes being like, I don't want to, like, he gets to grow up his character he's known for on screen and like grow up as a person in a lot of ways. So when Buddy was like saying about the future of the franchise and stuff, it does make me wary, but at the same time, I'd be interested to see where he could take that stuff. And I guess my only big thing is, I feel like Kevin Smith's at the point now, like to what Ryan was saying before about the comedy stuff and whatever we've brought up before. It's weirdly Kevin Smith's at a point now where I think he would be better off doing the majority of this movie and any future like Clerks III or Mallrats series or whatever else, where the drama is actually the primary genre and the comedy is just there in more sparse regards, which you may be like, well, that's not a Kevin Smith movie then, like he makes comedies, but you can just tell so hard that he wants to actually tell a much more dramatic story, and like a lot of the jokes just feel like he's like, oh fuck, I haven't told a joke for 2 minutes, so I better write one in here because that's the type of movie it is. And I'm like, well, maybe you don't need to, maybe just fuck it, don't, you know. But how would everyone feel about that? The idea of Kevin Smith doing less comedy and just more of the dramatic stuff. Does that sound crazy?
I would completely agree with you, because in the same vein as the through point of that father's story is, well, it's quite poignant to me because I'm a father myself. So that was what I resonated with the most. And the most impactful scene for me is around that completely. So I agree. I think he really should give that a whirl and sort of head into that drama space or some sort of, not as comedy genre.
Yeah.
Does that interest you, Buddy, or you're like, that's not what I'm down for?
Well, just, I guess, looking at my two favorite Kevin Smith movies, Chasing Amy, of course, that's drama. Packed, or however, lost for words already. Drama-centric instead of, the comedy offbeats of the rest of the kind of universe. And then my favorite is Mallrats. And even though that's such a quote-heavy movie and, I guess funny in so many areas, the through line really was, they had this kind of simple premise for the story, and which is kind of getting a long lost love of your life back and making up for those relationships that you've kind of let pass by. That was really, I felt like that was the core, and all the comedy kind of came around that, where I guess with watching Reboot, I really felt that all the jokes were, and the throwaways and the cameos were kind of written first, and then the serious drama stuff was chucked in around it. So I don't know if that's the way it is. That's just the way I guess interpret it from watching it. I felt like that was the more the drama stuff was afterthought, even though that was the strongest bit. So yeah, I if it does go through with that kind of stuff, then I would definitely love for it to be more of that the storyline centric or first, and kind of have everything else kind of complement that.
So wasn't it mentioned that sort of he took a lot of beats from that he was going to put in Mallrats and Clerks III into this? So I have a feeling that emotional storyline, like being a father, was meant to be around Dante, and like they've brought it into Jay. Do you think?
I mean, it's possible. It's hard to keep up really with all the stuff he's cancelled and rewritten and whatever else. Like, we know for a fact that there was a Clerks III script. It was done. Brian O'Halloran was on board, but then Jeff Anderson wasn't. And then he ended up, and apparently it was like super depressing script anyway. So that didn't sound like a comedy at all.
That sounded awesome.
and now apparently he's rewritten that and got Jeff on board. So I don't know if that means it's even more dramatic and that's what Jeff wants, or it's less dramatic and it's more a comedy because that's what Jeff wants. But apparently Clerks III was super down, which is quite a weird way to end a trilogy where especially the way Clerks II ended. But for this movie, I feel like maybe a lot of the jokes is just because it's Jay and Silent Bob, and he's like, can I really, like, they are literally, like, you're talking about Chasing Amy, most of it's like Jay and Silent Bob are really in that movie to represent the dick and fart jokes of the universe, or else it's not even tied to the Askew universe in a lot of ways. And the whole rest of the movie is just super serious, and you're like, oh, Jay and Silent Bob here, so it's a Kevin Smith movie. Like Jay and Silent Bob represent dick and fart jokes. So can you do a super serious Jay and Silent Bob movie? I don't know. He could have tried, I guess. But the other thing I do wonder with it is that although I haven't like quote unquote grown up fully watching these movies, like as they've come out in theaters, I did watch them all from a young age and then have been a fan since then, kind of thing. So I do wonder if his core fan base has kind of grown up a lot to also feel at the point where they're like, look, man, we don't need this kind of humor that you used to do as much as you don't need to do it anymore. You know, like it feels like making movies for his audience 20 years ago when you should be making movies for his audience now, which have grown up, you know, instead of aiming to please. Like, I don't know what the target audience is. It feels like the target audience is from the past kind of thing instead of the present, which is the one thing. But look, I'm complaining a lot about the jokes. I will say I laughed several times. I just didn't laugh at every single joke. And I don't know if there's only a couple comedies probably ever where I've laughed at every single joke. So that's not that big of a criticism. However, I would say it's probably closer to like 50, 60%, you know, which isn't that great for a comedy. And even some of the stuff I was laughing at, it might have just been in my head laughing, not like laughing out loud laughing. So before we go over, we can focus on the Jay and Silent Bob stuff in a second or whatever. Let's go over all the cameos because I guess that's kind of a big thing about this movie. Let's just break down all of the characters that showed up in this from previous movies. I think I've wrote down everyone, but if I've missed anyone, feel free to point them out. So the first thing I wrote down is, and this is a big one because I brought it up when we talked about Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Justice has a kid. It's somehow Jay's, even though, as I said in that episode, you never see them have time to have snuck off and had sexy times, IMO. And they definitely they didn't do it in prison, as we theorized in that episode. We brought that up as a theory because in this movie, they mention how Jay never actually came to visit her. So they got dirty somehow. And I'm still just like, okay, what? I mean, it's not that super important. It just weirdly annoys me. And then we find out that Justice now is also now married, I think, or they just partner. I can't remember if they said married or it's probably not important. But with this,
she's married to the.
She's married to her. Okay, yeah. So she's now married to this lady called Reggie, who's played Rosario Dawson, who's not returning as a character from Clerks II, which made that all even more confusing. I'm like, why have her come back but not actually be Dante's wife in the fucking movie?
That's just like Jason Lee. He's like 4 different characters in the Mewes universe.
But I got so excited when I saw the trailer and I thought about the idea of those two like having a happy life and we got to see their married life with kids and whatever. Maybe they're saving that for Clerks III, obviously, but yeah. I think I was disappointed because I built it up in my head from the trailer being like, man, Rosario's back. We're going to see the Hicks family.
Maybe it's the same character. Maybe something happened. She's had to go into witness protection, change her name, and the events of the fallout has made her, change team. Maybe that was
the plot of Clerks III. That's why it was so super dark and stuff. So yeah, that's the Justice history. Then we have Holden show up. Holden now also has. See, this is the thing. Everyone has kids in this, and everyone's married, and everyone's like settling down, and that's like kind of a theme apart from a couple characters. Holden now shows up. He has a kid. Technically, it's with Alyssa because he was the one who donated sperm. Now, I tried to look up the official wording for this, and I couldn't find the official wording. Like, I don't know what you call what do you refer to as the kid? Do you call it a sperm donor kid? Like Holden has had a sperm donated child with Alyssa. Is that, I don't know if that's correct wording or not, but
yeah. So in terms of the exact details, yeah, that's what he's done. So he is the he's the sperm donor. So their co-parenting was the name that they used in the movie.
Yeah. And Alyssa's with got a girlfriend or wife as well. It wasn't the same girl from the end of Chasing Amy though. It was a different girl, unless I was like, okay, it's the same character but different actress, but I'm pretty sure it's a completely different character. And that was really cool. And we can swing back to that one in a moment because I feel like everyone will be, that's the scene everyone's talking about. But Brody owns a comic book store, but it's now in the mall still. That's where it was originally, right? It was in the mall always. No?
I don't think
was it somewhere else?
No.
So he's moved it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So Brody now owns a comic book store in the mall, but the mall is going under and it's now only has real rats in it, not mole rats. Ha ha.
Yes.
Golf clap. Loki is a born-again Christian, I think was the reveal with like something along those lines.
Reborn again.
Matt Date.
Reborn identity.
Matt Date. That's like the 1 minute of him on screen. I was like, okay, sure. And then Dante is still working at the convenience store, obviously. But most importantly, we find out in an after credit sequence that Jay has been the one putting the gum in the locks throughout this entire movie saga.
I loved that reveal so much.
Yeah. I was like, is there going to be something? I'm seeing through the credits, and then it just comes back to just have like that 10 seconds of pointing out the fact that he's the one who's been putting gum in the locks this entire time. I'm like, okay, I'll pay it. That was decent. So out of all... have I missed anything? Is there anything?
So you missed the return of Diedrich Bader. He was the security guard from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Yep, so he was back, which was fantastic.
Anyone else?
Running through my head now. Hang on. Let me have a quick think.
Buddy, which one of these grabs your attention you want to talk about first? Justice, Holden, Brody, Loki, Dante. Which of the cameos was the best to you?
Brody.
Yeah.
I love Brody.
So how do you feel about Brody showing back up and where his character is at now in the universe?
I think it's a bit weird considering the post-credit scenes from Mallrats, where he's the late night show host and everything. But I guess more groundedly, you would expect this kind of character to be running a comic book store in a mall. Kind of what the same kind of this circle of life, or come full circle for this kind of character. And it was actually, I think it was my favorite kind of part of the movie as well, when they're throwing back to Strikes Back, when they're doing the whole at the computer. You don't know what a reboot? You don't know what a reboot is? Well, let me explain. And they're doing all that kind of thing that Affleck was doing. I think that was my favorite part of the movie.
It's nearly shot for shot, I think, like from the camera angles and everything. Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
So it makes it better.
A couple other cameos that we missed. So this is where it's going into the expanded Kevin Smith universe. So we have Justin Long returning as Brandon St. Randy. That's the character from Zack and Miri Make a Porno. I love that character so much.
Is it the same character?
It is. They can't say it is because it's under a different distribution. Like the IP of Zack and Miri is owned by someone else. But it is Justin Long playing Brandon St. Randy, and as vaguely as they could get away with it. And there's a bunch of other additional cameos, but in terms of View Askewniverse Kevin Smith characters, there's not many more. We see his wife, Jennifer Schwalbach, return. However, she's playing Miss Mackenzie, which believes to be one of the mother of one of the characters in Yoga Hoses.
Oh, so he's tying in the whole universes now.
Yeah,
You've
pretty
got the
much.
extended Kevin Smith universe, not just the View Askew universe.
This is the season finale, but Kevin. Don't do this to us.
But in terms of others, because there's a bunch of other characters in there that are actors that rock up. So like Craig Robinson is in there. Let's see who else we got. We got Ralph Garman. If you're a fan of Kevin Smith stuff, you know exactly who he is. Adam Brody, which was cool. That's it. And the one that I'm just waiting to last because I want to hear what Buddy has to say about this. Le Champion, Chris Jericho, is in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot.
Yeah, did you like that, Buddy? Because before you had watched the movie last week or whenever it was, and I watched it before you, I was like, "No, Chris Jericho's scene's so funny in the movie." I was like, "Hurry up, watch it." So, did you like it?
Yeah, I really liked Chris Jericho, and I didn't know kind of what the cameo was going to be. So, this kind of far out of left field, or I guess I should say right field, with the type of group that he is playing with. Was really, really obscure. And even though he's kind of a bad guy in all of the wrestling universes and leagues that he wrestles in and portrays himself as a character, it was just funny to see him in the role that he was in this and actually get some kind of decent lines was funny as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed that whole his cameo. And I know he's supposed to be in Kevin Smith's Love One he shot as well, apparently. So can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but the horror one or whatever. So that'll be interesting.
Was it Moose Straws?
No,
Hasn't shot
something
yet.
else.
Okay.
Different one. I know there was a photo of them they put up on Instagram, so I was like, okay. Don't know if this is coming out soon, given current world events, but all right, Ryan, do you want to talk about Holden?
Oh my God. Okay. By far the greatest part of this whole fucking movie. So the scene that is most pivotal is when we finally get to see Jay and Silent Bob reunite with Holden McNeil, which the scene just feels like Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes catching up with Ben Affleck for the first time in years. The entire vibe of that scene is old friends that just finally were able to get together. It's amazing. Now, knowing myself, like the history behind the scenes of the relation between Kevin and Ben and how it's been so long, and the second that I spotted him in the film, I'll admit I fucking cried. I was so happy to see it, and then what he happens to deliver in that scene is this incredible monologue about becoming a father and the importance of being a father and all these other things which resonate with me as well. Like it's absolutely tremendous, and Ben Affleck bangs the living crap out of it. It's just I love that scene so much, so much. And then little subtle things because the child that of Alyssa and Holden's is Jay's child, so it's Logan. And the whole time you can see Jay just messing about with her on shot, and like I think that's real Jay there, and I absolutely love it. I love that scene so much.
It's so interesting too because when they announced he was going to be in it, I expected a 10-second cameo, honestly, or something like that.
Same.
And then hearing about like how it came together behind the scenes of Kevin not wanting to get in contact and then finally someone pushing him to reach out, and then Ben basically being like, yeah, man, I can come do that. I'll fly in tomorrow and I'll shoot it.
So
like,
in short, the issue was with Ben Affleck's ex-wife, Jennifer Garner, who had an issue with Kevin Smith. So as a result, they weren't able to hang out, socialize, work together as like they used to. So I think it was more like as the time grew longer, Kevin was more reluctant to reach out. Fuck, I'm glad he did.
I was going to say, and it proves that sometimes, you just got to be the one to reach out and touch somebody kind of thing. Buddy, how do you feel about the scene with Holden?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Like Ryan was saying, I agree. It was the most pivotal scene and monologue in the movie to kind of make Jay realize what was most important in his life at that time. I absolutely loved Affleck at the end when he's like, there he goes. He's gone, girl. Yeah, they're gone. Out on the town. And he just started like naming all these Ben Affleck movies. I'm like, this is stupid. Now they've done what you've said before. They have this sentimental monologue, and then they just kind of end it all with this, funny humor moments. I'm just like losing it. So
I didn't mind that part because honestly, I began wondering if that was even part of the script or if it was just Ben Affleck because he was with such the young kid, obviously, just kind of messing around with her for on set kind of thing, and it just fit into the movie. I really do wonder if that was just part of the script or not, because it seemed like.
To add to what you're saying about is that part of the script. So this is the instance where Kevin Smith delivers exactly what he wants to say. This is one of those moments we've talked about it in the other films, where there is a very clear moment where this is Kevin Smith addressing the audience, and it's just him getting everything out. Because the whole monologue is essentially the idea of, I've done all these things, and the love of the past is fantastic, and it's allowing me to continue my work, but I don't care about that anymore. I don't care about that. I care about as my kid, and I want to see what she wants to do, and I want to be there for her and help support her and put her in the front of the stage, and I'm going to take a step back to allow that. And it's so good.
The whole Bruce Wayne line was hilarious as well.
Yeah,
Ben Affleck's the bombest Batman. Yeah,
yeah. I really enjoyed it too. But again, I was just so surprised how much they got him in it, and then also how much you learn about him and Alyssa. And like what's happening, and now I'm kind of like, oh man, like I don't know if I want more movies of them, but God, I wish we got more time. Like they gave me enough that I'm like, oh man, I want more now. You should have gave me less, so I didn't want more kind of thing. who else was out of interest here? Does anyone? I don't think we really need to talk about Justice. Obviously, the Loki thing. I'm like,
The Loki thing is absolutely fantastic because it's just a punchline to a Bourne joke, which I love. It's like there's no transition anywhere. There's no logical way you could put it in there. It's just like, hi, I'm Loki from Dogma, and here's a bunch of references.
Yeah, and the fucking Kevin's just sitting there high as fuck, just like like typing away these fucking puns. Jesus.
But I love because he goes like, boom, all right, look, I'll narrate the start of the next scene because fuck it, and then
it was a nice way
never
to
hear
segue
from again. Yeah.
I was like, at that stage, I was like, okay, so is he now the narrator in the movie? No, he's just there to segue in to get the Bourne joke in. Fair enough. Yeah, and then Dante, we obviously don't get much time with. It's interesting though. I will point out, I did kind of enjoy the silliest gag in the movie, which is them running into the Comic-Con set panel things, obviously, which reminded me of when they ran through the sets of like Scream and everything in the original. I feel like that's the kind of parallel scene for this movie, since this is a reboot, of course. And I did like how when they run in, they're all in black and white up there on the stage. I was like, this is the silliest part of this movie, but also I did laugh at that, so that was fun. All right, so let's talk about the crux then. So Jay and Silent Bob's storyline, and I say Jay and Silent Bob when really this whole movie is just about Jay. Like, Bob's there as he usually is, however, he's even more so than ever, I feel, kind of pushed to the side. Kevin is really not interested in growing that character to be anything more than just what he is, and that's just this side character person that he gets to play and have fun with his friend. But it also means that we get the most amount of Jay storyline we've ever had in any of these movies, obviously. And when you knew going in he was going to have a kid, from the trailer, and this is a reveal and everything like that. So I guess the key question I have is, did you enjoy Harley Quinn Smith playing Jay's daughter? I personally thought she did a great job. I actually quite enjoyed her in that role, right?
Yeah, I agree. I have no major issues with it. I think she's great. Like, Yoga Hoses, as much as being her first really big role, I'm not a big fan of that movie overall. But her performance in here was pretty fantastic for someone that's done very minimal in terms of previous work. And the benefit of essentially working opposite her dad and her Uncle Jay, like there is a comfortability there that is coming across. I think that's really helped plays that role and really allowed her to sort of open up in those more emotional scenes.
Yeah, and you get when they have the goofs in the credits, like there's several funny parts there where you can tell she's like really trying, but then she kind of is like, "Can you stop fucking around?" Like to her own dad and Jay, like just take it seriously, kind of thing. Because I like whenever you hear stuff about her, you can tell that she's not like, "Oh, Daddy's just put me in the movie." She wants to be a real actress. That's like kind of the career she's chosen for herself, I guess. And of course, she's privileged to be able to get the jump start into that. However, I do feel like she's not just doing it because her dad's chucking her in movies, because she's shown up in Tarantino's movies over here and whatever else. So she's out there. Buddy, how do you feel about her?
Yeah, I thought she was fantastic, and once again, I agree with you, Ryan, pretty much verbatim, that comfortability factor. And as a viewer, kind of knowing the relationship that she's Kevin's daughter and Uncle Jay, and having it kind of flipped in the movie. Even when Jay's kind of looking at her or realizing, oh my God, this is my daughter that I have missed out on this relationship with. Even when he's kind of longing to kind of make up for that, even you still get that kind of natural chemistry or vibe between the two of them anyway, because they are in essence family in real life. So I thought she was, I thought she was fantastic. And it was probably once again, I didn't like Yoga Houses as well. And like you were saying, Dylan, she's been in a couple of things here or there. I'd really like to see what she can kind of do outside of the guise of, being Kevin Smith's daughter or being in Kevin Smith movies, and kind of...
or his friends, because we know Tarantino's a mate of his, so it's like...
And see what she can kind of do, and maybe with, a little bit more, I guess, better, more... dramatic material instead of being just in these kind of her dad's comedy movies. So
with that though, her role is very serious.
Yes,
like she's not
yes.
really there for the comedy at all. And in a lot of ways, I feel like her own father didn't even bother trying to write comedy for her because he was like, yeah, she can't do that. I'll make sure the character's just dramatic. You know, there's no point trying to give her too many jokes. She won't be able to pull them off, kind of thing. Because even the more dramatic characters throughout the history of the show have always had a couple jokes here and there, but really she's just very much fucking serious. And she's got a super dark history, of course, and whatever else. How do we feel about her friend group, though? Because that's my one kind of. I wasn't a big fan of like. It seemed like they were just kind of caricatures of lots of different, and they're like chucked together.
I do feel that was the point. I do feel that was commentary on, or very not like incredible commentary, but like pretty on the nose commentary of reboot culture. In terms of like, okay, we've got an ensemble cast and we're going to hit all these demographics. I think that's what he was trying to get at, perhaps.
Possibly.
Yeah, and I think later on in the movie when the kind of the staffer comes down from the panel and goes, yeah, you know, Kevin Smith apparently talked to this girl and they want all you diverse people in the front row up on the stage. And those are probably my favorite moments in the movie, like I was saying before about Brody and how he's explaining reboot versus remake and Hollywood culture and how there's no original ideas anymore. And once again, like you were just saying before, that kind of is that a smart way of kind of showing the kind of diversity stuff that's happening in Hollywood at the moment. And yeah, I thought it was pretty much when they went in and made that comment towards the end of the movie, I'm like, was this did he make this happen on purpose? And this is kind of he's kind of tying the bow on that kind of commentary. That's kind of how I came across it as well.
Yeah, that would make sense, I guess. I know I just missed that one, but when you're saying that stuff, it did remind me of the whole Brody thing about the reboot and stuff culture, because I just remembered it was quite funny how Kevin's like a known massive Marvel fan, and then he puts in the whole part where Brody's like complaining. He's like, fucking Hollywood's going to kill itself. No original ideas anymore. And then Jay is like, yeah, these fucking Marvel movies. Don't you dare talk about those Marvel movies. They are my life. I was like, that is, yeah. So it's like he's aware of how silly it is to, you know, kind of complain about no original content and then make a reboot and also love Marvel movies.
They make all these extended universes so that people have to go see the next movie, and then all these fans get upset and angry when they're just seeing the same processed ideas. Yeah, like this, that. Yeah, well, man, that was so good.
But to add to that, how do you guys feel about Kevin Smith making fun of reboot culture while also exploiting reboot culture in the same film?
I mean, I think you can pull off a joke and be very just open that you're like I mean, it's not really the same. He's not part of the problem. Like, you can't compare reboot to like rebooting Jaws, Back to the Future, fucking Star Wars, you know, like some massive franchise where it's an actual quote unquote problem, if that's how you want to put it. Like making a reboot of Jay and Silent Bob, because it's not even actually a reboot. That's the thing, I guess. That's an important difference. Like it's a sequel, it's a continuation, even though it does kind of follow the same story structure and tell a similar sort of story, and he calls it a reboot. It's not actually a reboot, or it's not even a reboot or a remake. It's just it's a joke.
And I think
it's a joke. It's all part of the joke.
Yeah, it's meta. It's in the in joke, and the difference here is, I guess, the fans of this franchise are actually wanting this movie and Kevin Smith to make it, and more Jay and Silent Bob. Whereas maybe in other franchises, you know, who wanted a Point Break remake? You know, at one point they wanted Ronda Rousey in a Roadhouse remake. It's, you know, those things failed, and their commentary on Fast and the Furious. Although I guess in that kind of universe, maybe people are yearning for more of that. That's kind of caught more fire than maybe some of the more other examples where people didn't want something to be remade or rebooted and stuff. So.
Cool. If you're enjoying this podcast, you can listen to It's About Family, our Fast and Furious podcast on theexplosionnetwork.com.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me, buddy. Now
no affiliation here. I do not support or endorse the words of one Dylan Blight. My views on the Fast and the Furious are not shared with anyone else on this panel. So.
Yeah, I'm very much aware that you're not a fan of the franchise. Anyway, view Askew. So, let's talk about where they kind of end up, of course. So that's if we need to see Jay and Bob show up in any future movies, if there is future movies, and then I want to ask if like what you want Clerks 3 to look like and what you think it'll look like, and et cetera, et cetera. But starting with Jay and Bob, at the end of this movie, it very much seems like Jay, I guess, is getting weekends with his daughter and they're hanging out in front of convenience stores, and that's how he's using his bonding time and whatever else, and that's quite funny and it's sweet. And of course, that's the crux of it all. Where it goes from there, who knows? But at this point, if they do Clerks 3, if they do a Mallrats series, do you think that like Jay and Bob are still in the background and they're showing up now with Harley there playing the kid, tagging along for fun? Or do we just get rid of Jay and Bob from the franchise and be like, well, they're done with all the shenanigans now? Because then it would be like, that would be really fucking weird to watch a View Askew movie without Jay and Bob making at least one cameo. So, Ryan, what do you reckon?
Well, because in terms of what because I'm obviously more excited for a Clerks 3 rather than the Mallrats miniseries. I think Mallrats miniseries will still be interesting, but Clerks 3 is what I'm most excited for. I want to see where Dante and Randall are at now. So with the idea that Clerks 1 was Kevin Smith, and the idea is they're in their 20s. Clerks 2 are in their 30s. Now they're in their 40s. Like, I want to see where they move towards now. I want to see Becky and their kid, their kid with Dante. I want to see if Randall has a partner, because when there was a time they were expressing casting calls for a partner for Randall. Like, I want to see where these guys are, because Clerks 2 does end on them running the quick stop and being happy, and this is what they realized that they wanted to do. However, I still want to see where that is, because I think, as you mentioned before, Dylan, the idea of growing up with this universe, Dante and Randall are where it began, and I want to see where they're at now, because I've related to Dante and Randall at different parts in my life, and I want to see where I sit with them now. It's totally selfish, but I want to see where I sit with them now. So in terms of Jay and Silent Bob being in there, I do think we will see them in there, but maybe they will continue to be like they'll become maybe like more of a point of reason, like, hey, I've got a kid now and I'm doing this and that, and like, what are you doing?
That would actually be funny that you're saying it. I can picture that. Like, yes, yeah. That would be
like
funny.
Randall, maybe Dante's behind the counter still complaining about not having to be there, even though he owns the joint. And he's like, fuck you doing, man? Like, I got a kid. I got responsibilities and shit, and you're sitting here still bitching and whinging like it's 1995.
You've sold me. I'm done. Let's end the show. That changed my whole thought process. That actually makes heaps of sense. Buddy, how do you feel?
I don't care to see any of these characters ever again. As harsh as that sounds, people are going to listen to this and like, oh, Buddy's such a hater. Does he even like Kevin Smith or any of these movies? I think growing up and outside of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, which I only really watched in full last year when we were recording for this, I'd seen parts of it. I think it was the best example I can pull out is Harold and Kumar. Okay, I saw that movie in 2004. I was in year 12. It was hilarious. I loved it at the time. 4 years later, I go to the cinema, I see Guantanamo Bay, and I'm in the cinema and there are laughs everywhere, and I'm just really, I feel like I'm past that humor, and I don't know with how these characters have evolved, and some of them have got happy endings, whether we can keep coming back to this well, and whether this fan base kind of wants to keep going with it. I like Ryan's idea if they are going to continue to have that evolution and, do the family stuff, but I don't know what kind of legs that has in sense of those characters and how they've evolved, and instead of just, oh, look, we're shooting this movie and all of a sudden they're there, or we're going to get 90 minutes or 2 hours.
They can't be drug dealers at 40, be fucking weird.
Yeah, so if they're going to continue with this, I would actually like to see, which is funny because they've just had a movie called Reboot that we're kind of talking about right now. I would actually like to see maybe it get rebooted. And by that, I mean, maybe let's start fresh and have some new characters and get some young talent in. Maybe you can have his daughter, Harley Quinn Smith, if she's going to continue doing this route and, kind of not do other stuff, as a character that can kind of be the draw card for these fans that love Kevin Smith and get all these other characters in. It gives you a great chance to kind of change the humor up as well, without having the kind of baggage that you have with the Jay and Silent Bob and the dick and fart jokes. And maybe you could have your slight cameos that are your 10-second type stuff, but this is your chance to get new characters and maybe a new kind of universe and stuff without being so obscure with all the Tusken and moose jaws and stuff. But really, at the end of the day, Kevin Smith is a guy that listens to his fan base, and we've seen it through the podcasts and Tusk and Warning the Mallrats and the Clerks III and even to a degree this movie. So I think it really comes down to the fan base and what they want, and they will tell Kevin, and more often than not, he will probably listen, whether it's to, his artistic or financial detriment or advantage. So, yeah.
What about if Jay's daughter starts working at the Quick Stop?
I don't want to see Quick Stop ever again.
Then she has to deal with her dad hanging outside of the store all day, being like, Dad, can you not hang outside the store, please? This is very unbecoming.
But then we're stuck with, Jay still being in it and still having all this history and these jokes. Is he going to tuck his dick in again? Which is one of my least favorite gags of Clerks II.
Yeah,
and
that opening joke is really rough.
Opened in Reboot, and I was like, here we go. This is not a good start, especially with the FBI and the very loud, really weird, very bad dialogue. Really rough start to watching this movie.
Yes.
Only fact that they reference Buffalo Bill and then, get out here, Silence of the Lambs Bob. Then I thought, okay, cool. They've tied it into a joke that I think is funny. Fantastic, but it was a really rough start, and I don't know. That's just my personal opinion of what I'd like to see if Kevin Smith is going to continue making movies and with these type of characters or this kind of universe plan or a genre or whatever, a strategy that is kind of prevalent here. But whatever, I'm kind of happy if this is the kind of the bow tied all together on the cherry on top. I think it's a good kind of finale for all of this.
I agree on. I don't personally want to see the Quick Stop ever again either. Like watching a whole movie inside the Quick Stop, I'm like that place seems kind of boring to me. And Clerks II is exciting because it's a new place, right? It's movies, it's new, fresh, exciting. However, I do want to see those characters again. I just kind of wish the whole movie, I just hope the movie isn't going to be, let's fucking spend a day in the quiet side of the Quick Stop. Like if Clerks III is barely in the Quick Stop and it's actually at their homes and in their lives and all that sort of stuff, and it's more like a day or two inside their lives and you're following around and barely in the Quick Stop, I'll be like, oh, this sounds great. But yeah, the idea of spending a whole movie in the Quick Stop, I'm not super keen on. Rebooting the whole franchise, that sounds very scary.
Yes, absolutely.
Sounds super scary. And as to the other point you said, like about, Kevin Smith will do what his fans want. I do often wonder, like as we're talking about here, we're all like, yeah, like some of the jokes are good, some of them are bad, whatever. But we're most interested in these characters. And I don't even know if so many other fans may feel the same, but just never like say that, I guess, and vocalize it. And maybe Kevin's not even aware of that. Like, especially because I would feel the majority of his fan base, like us, who were looking forward to this movie, you're not looking, surely none of them are like, oh man, I'm so excited to watch this movie for the dick and fart jokes. No, they're excited to watch it for the characters. So like at this point, everyone's coming to these movies for these characters. However, maybe Kevin's just not like aware of what his fan base actually wants from the characters at this stage, which is, as we're saying, character progression and story and whatever else, and not just seeing those characters do dick and fart jokes, So he may not even be aware because his majority of his fan base may not vocalize that they feel similar to us, even if they do feel similar to us, and that may be a problem because then he feels like, oh, that's what people want, but maybe it isn't. I don't know. It's hard. It's three of us can't speak for the millions of people, of course, but it's a possibility.
Before you touch on it, with kind of listening to the feedback and whether the fans can actually vocalize it all, we are in a situation now where, oh my god, this is the greatest thing, I'm a fanboy, or this is trash, I hate it, this is pathetic, I'm a troll. There's never ever like a constructive middle, especially with the internet. So even if fans wanted to vocalize that, even though we have the biggest and best platform ever to do that, is there a way that people are going to be able to comprehend and actually get that out in the right manner for it to be able to materialize, because it'll always get lost in the extremes of hate and love as well of the product. Or it's weird calling it a product. Ugh.
Yeah, not to go like too much of a sidetrack on that, but in general, I'd say, like, if you were to try and say that on a forum, an open forum, where there was a chance of Kevin seeing it, all of his fan base would potentially jump on you and shut you down for being a hater, right? But the thing is, like to your like constructive criticism or whatever, the whole thing of this podcast, the whole reason we did it is because we're like, we love these movies. Like, sure, some of us feel some aren't that great, some love other ones than others or whatever. But in general, the whole idea of this podcast was we really like these movies. We're going to talk about them. And here we're being very critical about the movie somewhat, discussing its ups and downs. But in no way does that ever mean that we're suddenly haters in a movie. But yeah, so it's really weird. If the only people who are super loud and vocal in any sort of fan base, and in this example, obviously it's the Kevin Smith fan base, if the only people he ever hears are the super fanboys telling him everything that he ever did is great, and this is the same for any director, writer, fucking anything, if the people they only ever pay attention to and or see because of how forums like Twitter and whatever are set up, because you'll only see the top comments, and who's going to get the most likes? People saying, oh my God, Kevin, this is the best thing ever. They get all the likes, they go to the top. If anyone has anything else to say, no one's going to like them. You won't see them, you won't hear them. So yeah, I mean, that's a problem with fandom in general, I think, what you're talking about.
Yeah, because everyone would be the more happy vocal fan, presuming that would come to the top of the list, and that was what would get seen by Kevin. You know what I mean? Like, so it would be that acknowledgement that, what's what I'm looking for, the gratification, thank you, of having Kevin read and, you know, engage with your comment. And it's more likely he'll comment with you being incredibly lovely compared to, hey dude, like, here's this.
Yeah, like if we wanted this thing to be even more popular, we should have just done an 8-episode series where every movie we're like, this is the best movie ever.
Yeah, just like suck his dick for like 8 episodes.
Yeah, like sucked his dick for 8 fucking episodes and then like shared it around and be like, hey, Kevin Smith fan base, share this around. And yeah, maybe we would have got sent the movie early. I don't know. Like.
And I think a great recent example of that, I know you don't want to hear these words at all, Dylan, give you some kind of suppressed memory and recollect that, but it's actually with Star Wars and how the feedback from The Last Jedi and, you know, kind of listening to what people did and didn't like and trying to really change that in The Rise of Skywalker. And it really felt like that was a shotgun approach. And instead of having kind of, here's our vision, here's our focus, trying to kind of listen to too many voices and where you don't actually kind of, you know, implement the proper strategy or hit what you're trying to achieve. So, yeah.
Yeah, and like, not to go deep on it because obviously I did like 3-hour podcast talking about how much I dislike that movie, but that is a case where it does seem the vocal minority didn't like the movie and then they all gathered to like those comments on Reddit or Twitter or whatever. So then if you were neutral on the subject, it seemed like everyone hated it because all the top comments would be people shitting on The Last Jedi, right? And that's no different than what we're talking about here. If everyone's like, oh, I love this movie, Kevin, and everyone likes that, like the super fanboys like that and get shot to the top. Or if anyone's like, hey, Jay Silent Reboot was pretty great, enjoyed it, but maybe next one you focus a little bit more on the characters because that's kind of what we're into now. And they're like, no, we will not like your comment or your podcast. Get the
this
hell
guy
out
hates
of here.
it. He said focus on something else. He hates it. No.
Boo
He hates
this man. Tell him Steve Dave.
Yeah.
Tie that one in.
Think because a guy reads some comics doesn't know how to start some shit?
Yeah, exactly. There is a Askew joke for every occasion. All right, let's go on to the next thing. So, of course, every other episode, ask what everyone's favorite moment is. And I'm going to say I know that this one's not as loved in our history, so it may be hard to pick one. Although I'll put Ryan on the spot first because he's the person who's seen it twice, so he gets to say what was and is, do you reckon, your favorite moment? Is it the...
It is the Holden
moment?
scene. Yeah, unquestionably. There, and probably a close second would be there is... Because there were a couple of moments with Harley Quinn and Millie and Jay talking about addressing the father issue. There was There's one of those is my favorite from the movie. So there's the first one which they do in the van, which gets interrupted by the dumbest shit, and not even the good dumbest shit. Like, that was a perfect example of a really heartfelt moment ruined by a bad joke, where there's a second one later on, which is after the Holden scene, and that is exceptional. Brilliant. So that's probably like a close 2.
Buddy, what's your favorite note?
Yeah, the Brody cameo and kind of the callback to the Ben Affleck character explaining the internet to the boys, and with this time being the difference between the remake, reboots, and kind of Hollywood. And I really love that kind of Kevin Smith using that as an avenue to kind of take a dig at Hollywood itself, and even, you know, poke a little bit of fun at himself and the whole kind of premise of what the movie's about. So what I was trying to really say about the kind of industry and the meta nature of it, not the when they turn to the camera. I don't really like those moments in it. Like
it had to be included because
it had to be included, but more so the messaging and what they're saying. I like that. That was kind of my favorite part.
Yeah, so my favorite one is the moment where she starts breaking down what, like, exactly the reason they're going on this whole trip and everything, and she basically starts screaming at Jay and being like, I don't know my dad, never knew my dad, and she's like in tears and everything like that. Because that was the moment I was like sitting here. I started tearing up in that scene. That's the moment where I was like, whoa, we're going somewhere. I was like, well, I started getting like big hopes for this movie, and I was like, I wouldn't say I was let down. Like they kind of they shot it, they overshot the mark a little bit, but they got close to, you know, landing a home run here for that. But it was in that scene where I was like, wow, okay, this is I'm getting touched somewhere, and it's in my heart bones over here. That's what's happening. But yeah, it's that scene where I was like, she was really great, and like Jay was great in that scene, and I'm like, there is I mean, that's the core heart of the movie, I guess. Like that scene sets up what the whole movie is about, and it obviously knew they were family before that point, but from that point on in the movie, you know deep down that this movie is going to be about Jay realizing that this girl needs him and she needs her dad, because they could have had a different movie where she's like, fuck my father, I don't need my father, and then the movie becomes about him proving that she needs him for some reason, and that would have been a stupid movie, because it would be like, dude, she's like fucking nearly an adult, she don't need you now, so you missed out on her life. But the story is, here's this girl, she's grown up without her dad, and then as old as, how old is the character supposed to be? Like fucking 17,
18.
16, I don't know.
Yeah.
18
years. 18 years.
So she's, yeah, the story is 18-year-old who could very well be like, no, I don't need my dad at this stage, but instead she's still longing for that father relationship. So
I've been in that situation where, you know, I've been that kind of age and had parents come back into my life that have not been there, and I've had to make that decision myself, whether is this a relationship that I've kind of longed for and missed out on and want to reconnect with my, I guess, strange parents, or do I, you know, what's in my life now is what I have, and I don't want to really jeopardize that, and that's my family now. So that kind of resonates with me, and in that kind of.
Well, I was going to say, without getting too personal, how do you feel about that being touched upon in this movie? Do you think they delivered it in a very real way?
Yes and no. I guess in my own personal situation, I didn't feel like I missed out on having a relationship with family, because my nan and pop were my family and they were my parent figures. So when it came to my decision as an adult, when trying to reconnect with, I guess, parent figures, or those parent figures trying to reconnect with me, I already had my decision in play. These were already not good people in my life. So being a biological mother or father really had no relevance to me. I had my family and I knew what that meant to me. So that was the decision I made. Obviously, with this character, with Harley Quinn Smith, you know, she has felt like she has missed out on something. And growing up, it has been a void that she's been trying to fill. So it's completely kind of different situation from what I was in, because I had that void filled by my nan and pop, who were those parent figures. So I can totally see it from when someone is that age where they could want to reconnect and have that relationship. And I can also see it from my perspective, because I've lived through it and not wanting to do that. So yeah, I think it's a realistic kind of thing to have, you know, because so many people, when, you know, they're absent from a parent, and from a child perspective as well, or even from a parent's perspective, they're like, well, shit, I'm not going to be around them while they're growing up. Are they not going to want to be a part of my life? And at least in this situation, you can see that perspective from her, that she has always wanted that, and she got it. Or got the opportunity to kind of have a chance at that. So it definitely
thanks
a
for
realistic
sharing that,
perspective.
man. That was cool.
I guess
No worries.
it's always going to come down like person to person, but I also like appreciate within the movie that like it's not like, oh, Justice is raising her in a horrible family, so that's the reason she's always had this longing for her father. It is simply that for whatever reason, deep down inside, she's just always missed it. And other people in the same exact scenario that she was in may have just been like, I'm good, you know? And it's just going to vary person to person. Yeah.
And
so it's like if
especially
you were her, you might have been like, no, I'm good, Jay.
Especially with the type of character that Jay is, and the kind of, he's been in trouble with
Yeah.
the law and, drug dealer and all this stuff. And it come down to, we might be biological a family or whatever, but are you a good person? Do I want to know you? Do I want you to be a part of my life? So from that perspective, I'm like, that's just a Hollywood thing. Maybe more realistically, I can look at that person and go, yeah, nah, you're not a good influence. I've been way better off without you. So.
Yeah. I mean, these movies are like fantasy, really. So
yes, of course.
Realistically, if I was in her scenario and I'm 18 and my dad turns up and it's Jay and like, hey, fucking, I sell drugs. You want to come up? Be like, nah, dude, I'm good. Probably I'm good. And it's, in high school, I knew two people whose fathers were in prison until they were 16, 17-ish or something like that. And one of them really wanted to connect with their father when he got out of prison, and the other one wanted nothing to do with him. And they were both, so, it really does very, 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 but I like the way they present it in this movie because I have seen other movies where they present it as if the child really needs the father or the mother or whoever it is in their life because that's their position, and that in the law of the world, everyone requires their parents to be in their life because that's how life works. And I never really liked that story. It's like it differs. I don't know why everyone, especially if they're in a loving home anyway, it's like,
yes, I've seen a lot of movies where I hate that story.
Yeah, you're like, they're in a loving home. Why does this seem so? Anyway, yeah. So I like the way they represent that.
Yep.
I forgot how we even got here, but yeah, I was pointing out my favorite scene. Right? Okay.
And
that one,
I know we're kind of wrapping up soon, but I'd like to kind of touch on something I think we might have overlooked. I haven't seen the show notes or anything, but Kevin Smith actually being in this movie. And being the director of the reboot and how kind of really meta that was, and how he is actually a part of this universe as a character himself now. So I thought that was quite funny in itself.
So does that then put that in this real world, this current world?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's a documentary.
So apparently, from like putting together the pieces, it seems that was supposed to be Stan Lee.
Yeah, I think so too.
Is the going word, because there was all this stuff about him saying Stan Lee was supposed to be in it. He asked him to do it. There was this clip of them talking about it on the IMDb
that was funny.
Comic-Con live show and all this other stuff. And he was supposed to be in it. And then obviously when he passed away horribly, he
didn't pass away. He passed away sadly. He didn't pass away horribly.
Sadly.
Like he was just old.
You just made me picture.
It was a horrible event.
You just made me picture Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Stan Lee's drinking from the Holy Grail. That's not the Holy Grail. What are you doing?
Stan Lee passed away sadly. Let me correct myself on that one. Yes, but I believe that was who he was supposed to play, which would have been quite interesting to obviously watch Stan Lee do that role. I thought that Kevin choosing to do that role and play that and make the movie like really super meta, it worked for me because like he really poked a lot of fun at himself. And he could tell he was having fun with it, and it's only right at the end, like...
But he's got a small dick.
It worked. Yeah, yeah. It worked for me. I had absolutely no problems with it, personally.
Yeah. It worked for me as well, and especially tying it in with my favorite part, like I said before, about the kind of poking fun at Hollywood. I think, this being even more fourth wall breaking and having that kind of meta jokes in it was even more...
He makes himself out to be a bigger arsehole than what I think most people believe him to. Everyone believes him to be a nice guy, and yet in this he makes himself out to be a bit of an arsehole, especially with the scene of him like walking up to take a pitch, like, get over here, fucking kid, and like all this stuff with the extras and all that sort of stuff. So It's fun. It's like a heightened version of Kevin Smith, I guess.
Yeah, and speaking of a little throwback in that scene, I did really enjoy that. Oh, Marvel's going to sue somebody. So throwback to Strike Back, which I enjoy. Guys, we forgot to mention Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, right, yeah. Hey, I'm Chris Hemsworth. Do not touch the thing.
Yeah, don't hump the statue. It's fine.
Everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder how he manages to get certain people to do cameos, especially like Chris Evans or to record Hemsworth to record a quick thing like that. Quite funny. I enjoyed it though. Especially because the other girls. The other girls basically the version of Jay in this movie. Jay in this movie is like very tame. He's never like, oh, I'm gonna like apart from that one scene where he sees justice and he like has that whole like flashbacky scene, which is obviously a throwback to the
but just him getting
movie.
pegged. It's awesome.
Yeah, like apart from that, Jay in this movie is like very calm, and the girls are actually the ones who are doing all the raunchy jokes. I think that's part of the movie, of course, part of the fun of it. Like, especially that scene up front where they're talking about how much they, in the car, talking about how much they love Chris Hemsworth. And Jay's like, oh, don't talk like that. Like, that's disgusting. And I think that was obviously supposed to be a joke about how guys are allowed to be like, oh, fuck her hard and all that sort of stuff. And the second girls are like, oh, I love the fucking guys. Are like, oh, you can't say that. That's disgusting. Yep. So that was fun. Before we wrap up, any other random bits and pieces, scenes you just want to note that you're like, this was funny, this was great, thingity things? No?
One thing I get, more of a down note, the gentleman that played the Uber driver, did he feel off to you guys as well? Like, I know he's got a dry delivery because he's been in a bunch of other things.
Yeah, that's just how he is, I believe.
Okay,
like, that's how his comedy is.
Yeah, none of it really landed for me personally. But I did enjoy the hater tots. That was a cool little thing to come out of that, I suppose. It was nice and dumb. But
it fits the world of Kevin Smith making silly, like, food-related brand jokes into the Askew universe. Like, of course, Moobies is a big part and all the other things like that. So you got, like, the hater tots. And of course, people didn't like them, and the right wing picked up on it. It's funny. All right. So that will do it for the final episode of Radio Movies, Season 1. Bung! That's right. There will be a second season sometime in 2020. We'll be back. Non-View Askew movies. So that will be, get your pen and paper down. Start planning now. Jersey Girl. Zack and Miri Make a Porno, Cop Out, Red State, Tusk, and Yoga Hoses. Those are the 6 films, which apparently are now part of the Kevin Smith universe. So I'm finding out during this episode they've tied them all together. So it really does make sense for this podcast now. It's not just like, let's do the non-related ones. Let's do the other somewhat related ones now. So look forward to that sometime in the future. You can find out when that's coming by just listening to
in about 6 months, apparently. That's seems to be the cycle we're working on.
It'll at least start this year. Some of us we all may get stuck at home. Even required jobs may soon be not required, and the world goes into apocalypse, and we'll have all the time in the world. Who the fuck knows what could happen in the future? All right, so you can find Buddy Watson over at dashgamer.com, and you can be sure to follow him on Twitters at BuddyWatson12. You can find Ryan Betson over at youtube.com/thepopculturist, talking all things PlayStation on For the Players and Wrestling on The Young and the Wrestlers. You can follow him on Twitter at HaggardMC. And you can find myself right here on ExplosionNetwork.com on one of our many movies, games, or TV podcasts like Arcade Couch or What Do You Want to Watch? And you can follow me on Twitter at Viva Ladil. Please be sure to review this podcast on Apple Podcasts if you've enjoyed this season. And if you're looking forward to the follow-up stuff, you can tweet at Kevin Smith and tell him to listen to this for some true, great, actual feedback of what his true fans want out of future movies. That's right, true fans. Hashtag true fans. Last time, Smoochy Boochies.
You're wrong. That kid is just way more interesting to me.
You used to think life was all about me. I was the hero of my own story. Bruce Wayne of one lifelong issue of Detective Comics, so to speak.
And that kid came along and suddenly realized you're not Bruce Wayne anymore.
You're Thomas Wayne. Or Bruce Wayne's mom, whose name escapes me.
Anyway, I'm just here to set the real story in motion. Because once you become a parent, you're not the star anymore. You're the stage. I'm just here to prop up my kid so she can put on the show of her life, like my parents did for me, like theirs did before them. And if you're lucky enough to have a kid, the trade-off is you don't really get a third act to your story because the story changes. All of a sudden, it's not about you anymore. For the first time in your self-involved life, that's okay. Kids are like our reboots. Another chance to tell a brand new version of the same old story. I know I'm supposed to be teaching Amy stuff, but it's like I'm learning from her every day. So, spend my days chasing Amy.